welcome back to the On the Whistle podcast. My name is Ali Howard. I'm your host for today, and we are in full Club World Cup mode. And today we're talking about big one. Yes, Al Ahly, the opening team, playing in the opener against Inter Miami at the Club World Cup. Yes, it's a strange tournament. We're not sure if it'll be terrible or if it'll be amazing. But one thing is for sure, Al Ahly will show up as they always do on the international stage. And there's no one better to talk to us about it as our good friend Amr Fahmy. Amr, how are you doing today?
Hi, Ali. I'm doing great. Thank you for the invitation. I'm always glad to be with you.
Absolutely. Amr, the last time you were on the podcast, we were previewing the CAF Champions League final. You were doing with Zayn and Lawrence. Pyramids did kind of, not the unthinkable, but they got the job done in kind of spectacular fashion, not beating Sundowns 2-1 in Cairo, kind of this amazing achievement. But there's been a lot of kind of noise around Egyptian football with Al Ahly, with Pyramids in the cup final with Zamalek. Just give us a taster of how did the season end and where do we stand in terms of the Egyptian Premier League and Egyptian football before we get into the Club World Cup.
Controversies are all around, as it has always been the case with Egyptian football. So season is not an exception. And of course, so far Al Ahly has won the league according to the Egyptian Football Association and the Egyptian League Board as well. But there's still a case in front of the Court of Arbitration of Sports because Pyramids they are requesting 3 points to be deducted from Al Ahly, and in that case, they would win the league at the end. But we don't have an actual final date on which we are going to hear the verdict. So everyone is looking up to that saga, because if it's the case, it would be the first time in years that Al Ahly finished a season trophyless, because they didn't win the cup and they lost the Cup Champions League semi-final. As for the Champions League, it was of course Pyramids. They made the headlines. They, as you said, they did the job against Mamelodi Sundowns, even though they had like last 10 minutes in Cairo. It was very tense, but at the end, they knew how to hold to their lead, and they won the trophy. And this trophy gave them a real boost because the owners, the investors, now they knew that all the money that they have been spending for years, it was worthwhile, and at least this project will go on until 2029, until the next FIFA Club World Cup, because now they booked their place as one of the participating teams, and now they have one of the dominating forces in Africa. So many people also expect that they may go on a wild spending spree this summer, because um, finally they trust their decisions and they know that the more they spend, the more they can get results. So they are going to be the team to watch this summer in the transfer market. But still, they lost the cup final, domestic cup final against Zamalek, and it was very good news for the Zamalek supporters, because Zamalek were very anxious that their place as the team that is competing with Al Ahly was going to be taken by Pyramids, and that they are going to witness some years without trophies. But still, they got a trophy from under the nose of the very same Pyramids, even though it was on penalties. But if you compare the two squads, Pyramids were much better. But during the 120 minutes, because the game went to penalties, Zamalek knew how to manage the game. They knew how to press Pyramids, because Pyramids were exhausted after a very long and tough season. And it looks like next season will be very interesting in Egypt. 3 teams competing for everything. Even if Zamalek is on paper the weakest, but they still have the tradition, they have the spirit, and with that kind of smart management, that they can manage their resources wisely, I think they can still do well in the market and get 2 or 3 signings that would benefit the team greatly next season.
Yeah, and in some ways, it's refreshing in Egyptian football to have 3 teams competing instead of just the normal two, and kind of it's an exciting pace. Obviously, Pyramids have a very convoluted and complicated past, and so it's kind of, some people love them, some people, well, very few people love them, most people hate them. But yeah, I think it puts Egypt and Al Ahly in an interesting spot because, like you said, this could go potentially become the first season in decades, potentially, that they haven't won anything. Obviously, they didn't even participate in the Egyptian Cup this year after last year when they kind of pulled out of it. CAF Champions League didn't go well. They pulled the trigger getting rid of Marcel Kohler in the closing stage of the seasons after the CAF Champions League semifinal against Mamelodi Sundowns. So now they're coming into the Club World Cup, and it feels to me like this is a real kind of club in transition almost. You know, you've had some legends going out the door. You know, Rami Rabia is leaving. You know, you have Ali Mahlul, Ahmed Al Solia, like a lot of these kind of older guys who've been a part of this most recent complete dominant squad of Al Ahly, but you have it being refreshed. You know, Mohammed Ali Ben Ramdan coming, you know, formerly at Esperance and was one of the best players in on the continent in terms of club football. Aliou Jiang's back in the team, you know, and of course, the big sign. You talk about controversy in Egypt. Zizou moving across from Zamalek to Al Ahly, despite Zamalek's best efforts to not let him play in the Club World Cup and everything that goes along with it. How do you think that is going to impact their Club World Cup, having these new signings? Obviously, Jiang is not really a new signing coming back to the club, but how do you think they're gonna look kind of coming into this game against Inter Miami?
I think it's going to have a positive impact because it's always nice to have that feeling of a brand new atmosphere in the club ahead of a competition that you are entering without the intention of winning it, because Al Ahly is not among the favorites to win the competition. So they are just enjoying the atmosphere of playing with the best clubs in the world, and they know that they have a chance because their group is not that difficult compared to other groups. As I said before, there's no Real Madrid, no Man City, no Inter Milan, so no Paris Saint Germain. So you don't have that one club that we're going to say, okay, they are going to dominate the group, and we have to then um, to look out because maybe South Americans are always uh, on the second tier if you are going to rank the clubs playing this competition. But it's not the case with Al Ahly. They have Porto. With all due respect, they are not that Porto 20 years ago that won the Champions League under Jose Mourinho. And they have Palmeiras, and Al Ahly played Palmeiras over the years. I mean, they are not afraid of them. And even with Messi and all these clubs, with all these big names, they are aging. They are 35 plus. So if Al Ahly play physically, I think they will be able at least to win one match. So back to your question. I believe, well, with the signings that Al Ahly have made, they made their team more, actually, much stronger in attack because now you have Wissam Abu Ali, the Palestinian goal scorer, who's doing great. He even did great in the closing stages of the Egyptian Premier League after a tough season. But the season before, he was top scorer in the Egyptian Premier League. So now he's back to his best, and you added Trezeguet, the Egyptian international winger, to his left, and Zizou to his right. So that's a crazy attacking line. And you still also have some very good players who can deliver when it matters the most, like Mohamed Tahir, who scored the goal against Mamelodi Sundowns in Cairo in the second leg of the CAF Champions League semi-final. And now, even in midfield, Al got Hamdi Fathi back after a stint in Qatar. And he's a very good player, very combative midfielder. Who knows he can also operate as a central defender when it matters. So even with the absence of Rami Rabia, who was going to play the competition, but with another club, Al Ain of Emirates. So you have yourself covered. I mean, there is no weakness point in any line or any position for Al Ahly. I think they are in the best shape possible. And still, they tried to sign more players, but before uh, going to action, they sought permission from the Egyptian league to register more than next season, to register more than five foreign players for each team. The quota now is five foreign players for each team, so they tried to increase the quota, but they were faced by a stubborn opposition led by Zamalek during that assembly. So they didn't get what they want. But imagine if they had that extra player or two extra players. I imagine they would have gone for two more foreign players. But at the end of the day, I believe they are very well covered. Maybe with the new coach, maybe he needs some time because they played a friendly with Pachuca of Mexico, 1-1 draw. But he was experimenting. I mean, he played like with 11 different players each half, so you cannot conclude so many things from that game.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to ask about the new coach Jose Riveiro, because this that was obviously kind of one of the big turning points of the season for Al Ahly. That, deciding to sack Marcel Koller, who'd done such a brilliant job for Al Ahly, obviously building off what Pizzo Mosimane had done, winning kind of what was it, two, three CAF Champions Leagues, maintaining that dominance in the Egyptian Premier League. Yes, kind of didn't get over the line in terms of the cup competitions, but had kind of been brilliant for Al Ahly. You know, obviously things had become a bit stale. We've seen that in terms of the players being let go and there were criticisms over him, and it wasn't a good season. And now Jose Riveiro has come in. Now Jose Riveiro obviously has done so well in the last few years with Orlando Pirates. He took this team that was kind of way off the pace in South African football, kind of almost a mid-table team, them and Kaiser Chiefs in terms of how much they classed. And he's turned them around in kind of brilliant record time, really. Won 5 trophies, got back-to-back second place finishes behind Mamelodi Sundowns. And this year, beat Al Ahly in the group stages, Orlando Pirates topping that group, then went toe to toe with Pyramids, that kind of dramatic comeback from Pyramids in the second leg, obviously knocking them out. What is the opinion of Riveiro in Egypt, and how, essentially why have Al Ahly decided to turn to him as their new head coach?
Yeah, actually, Riveiro was very much highly appreciated here in Egypt because even before he was linked to Al Ahly, there were rumors that he was going to coach Zamalek next year. So just after he announced that it was going to be his last season with the Pirates, so the rumors spread that he was going to be the next coach for Zamalek. But things escalated quickly in Al Ahly and they sacked Marcel Koller, of course. It was a sad ending for 3 good years, but the last season, Marcel Koller appeared to be very much more conservative than he used to be. He was not taking the initiative in any of the games, always late with his substitutions, with the way he manages the team. And that made Al Ahly fans angry because they are very demanding. They want a team that is dominant. They say, okay, we have the players, we have the fans, we have everything, we have the power. So let's dominate any opponent from the start. So what Koller was doing didn't go well with Al Ahly supporters, and many of them said that, or actually believe that his sacking came just a little too late. They believe he had to be sacked in September, early
Mm.
this season when he lost the CAF Super Cup to Zamalek, rival Zamalek. So they said that was the moment that he should have gone. But now it was late. But anyway, as I said, Riveiro impressed everybody in Egypt with the way he managed the Pirates, especially that game against Al Ahly in Cairo. And actually, Spanish and Portuguese coaches are more well received in Egypt compared to other European coaches because they play a very good brand of football, very organized and still very technical. I mean, they don't suppress the individual part or the
Mm.
beautiful part of the game to the tactical assignments of players. They leave room for improvisation somehow that players can give their best. Uh, and as you see now, even in the UEFA Nations League final, two coaches were Spanish in the final. So I think Spanish coaches they are much more well received in Africa and all over the world. So that was the case with Rivero, and due to the time factor as well, Al Ahly they thought that we need a coach that knows the club very well, that has already studied the team very well, played against Al Ahly twice this season, so he knows
Mm.
everything about the team. And they were thinking about him and Jose Gomez, the ex-coach of Zamalek, but he was tied a contract with a club in Saudi Arabia and earning millions of dollars. So it was very hard to lure him. So Rivero was the best choice.
And I love that because that is exactly who Jose Rivero is in terms of his style. At Pirates, he was so good at implementing quite a flexible system, back three, changing into a back four regularly. They had a lot of structure defensively, but going forward, I think the thing that I loved about that team is he really didn't cut down on the kind of Casiflava kind of style of South African football. You still would see players like Relebo Hile, Mofokeng, or Patrick Maswanganyi, and Moham Kota really kind of flexing their muscles in terms of their football ability and expressing themselves. And I kind of love that it's like important to buy into that. And obviously, Al Ahly have so many players who have the ability to express themselves on the pitch and to beat a man in a 1v1 or to take people on. So I think for me, that's quite exciting. I want to ask specifically about him though, because and I want to shout out to Maher Mazahi, our friend, who's on the African Five-a-Side podcast, who kind of was talking about this. Was Jose Rivera, one of his best skills is kind of his capacity to connect with players, empathetically. He's got a real kind heart, in many ways similar to, I would say, we were making that Spanish connection, Luis Enrique at PSG, someone who has like a real heart, real genuine kind of love for people, for the game, but for family. I know Rivera's talked a lot about, not growing up without his father present, being raised by his grandma, and, very intimate kind of connection he builds with a lot of these players. Now, if I had to pick one club that is not going to work at, I feel like it would be Al Ahly, where, it is a huge structure, everything is demanded, and you kind of almost, I feel like in Al Ahly's case, there's almost a preference for these kind of strong, kind of very kind of not aggressive, but kind of almost distant coaches. I think of Marcelo Kohler, even Pizzo Mosimane. Yes, Mosimane could kind of get in the heads of his players, but he was kind of at the end of the day very aggressive, very demanding. Was not scared to call his players out and say kind of negative things. And I want to ask how do you think that will go with Rivero? Because then the other element is the language barrier, right? Is he's no longer speaking a language that his players can understand for the most part. How do you think that will work in terms of Al Ahly, and kind of do you think that he can overcome that and kind of build those connections to kind of build this team?
I think Egyptian people in general are emotional. They like to feel that kind of connection you're talking about, they are in a link with their coach regarding the players. And the players actually suffered a lot last season with Marcel Koller because they felt he was too distant from them.
Mm,
And so many players getting sidelined for long periods. And when they asked to sit down with the coach and discuss their situation, they were just snubbed, and that made things worse. I mean, he was not that good in managing the dressing room. So I think that might be an advantage for Jose Riveiro because this his interpersonal skills would help him a lot manage the dressing room of Al Ahly. But at the same time, if this is going to be viewed as weakness of character or as lack of character, so he might have some difficulties with the board
mm,
because the Al board is not an easy board to deal with. Notably, the chairman Mahmoud Al Khatib is one of the legends in African football, 1983 African Footballer of the Year. So he has to balance. I mean, it's good for him to have this emotional connection with his players, but at the same time, he has to be firm and yeah, very firm with the board when it comes to contracts, transfer policy. If they are going to sign any player without his consultation,
mm.
uh, decisions of friendly matches, training camps for the next season. There are, the summer will be full of things that he has to have a big say in it. So I believe it's the results that he is going to get in the Club World Cup will shape much of the relationship between him and the players and him and the board as well. It will show if his philosophy is going to work or not. And as well as we have to realize the fact that Rally signed all of these players without him having an opinion on that. So will he have the chance to go with a list saying, okay, I need one, two, three in the transfer market or not? I think that's going to be an interesting moment to watch.
Mm. And I find it so interesting him deciding to take on the job because obviously it's one of those where you can't pass it up, right? Like you have a chance to take Al Ahly to the Club World Cup, the first Club World Cup that's kind of this big global tournament. You know, you have the opportunity to put your name on the world stage in a way that you would really never be able to otherwise in African football. But at the same time, if it goes badly, Al Ahly lose all three games, they kind of get crash out of the Club World Cup because in part he's had no time to prepare, he's had no training time, he's had, like you said, no say in the signings. Suddenly he's starting his Al Ahly tenure at a point where pyramids are at their strongest, like you said, willing to and have the money to invest in the team. Zamalek are hurting, trying to come back into it. And suddenly you're being asked, okay, no, I'm not Marcel Koller coming into a team that's just won back-to-back, CAF Champions Leagues, looked like the best team in Africa. Suddenly I'm coming into a team that's, been knocked out of the Club World Cup. We're not even the best team in Egypt anymore. And suddenly there's all this kind of pressure on him, and it kind of, if that happens, I can't even see him making it to Christmas because, like you said, the Al Ahly board is kind of among the most difficult to please, and the fan base in world football. I want to ask Amr now, heading into the Club World Cup, before we get into the actual games themselves, just quickly, what is your sense of kind of the level of interest in Egypt towards this? Because obviously the Club World Cup, it's had its controversies, the way it's come about without any consultation, the way that teams like Inter Miami, their rivals have been for the first game have been crowbarred into the tournament. Even we're hearing stuff of maybe Ronaldo was even going to somehow get smuggled into the tournament. And it just doesn't feel like a very serious football tournament in so many ways. But at the same time, it's this amazing concept of, and African teams have always taken the Club World Cup, even when it was a smaller tournament, very seriously. Al Ahly, obviously, the team that's played in the Club World Cup more than any other in the world, it is important to them. But what is it? What is the kind of approach in Egypt in terms of interest?
Actually, it's as usual. I mean, Al Ahly fans, they are trying to maximize the event, saying that it's a very important event. We are playing the World Cup. We are first Egyptian team to take part there, and we have a chance to progress. Blah blah blah. And Zamalek fans, on the other hand, or the fan base of all the other clubs that dislike Al Ahly, they say, "Come on, it's a friendly tournament. It's not that kind of tournament that has to be taken seriously. Even European clubs are not taking it seriously." But I believe it's still too early to judge. I mean, we have to wait until matches kick off because you never know. I mean, I believe the first match day of all the groups will give us the right impression about whether all of the teams are taking this competition seriously or not. I believe African teams, South American teams, Asian teams are taking it very much seriously. We have seen Al Hilal of Saudi Arabia signing Simone Inzaghi, and they were trying to sign Bruno Fernandes and Victor Osimhen, Theo Hernandez, so many world class players. So I believe Asia are taking it very seriously, Africa as well. Maybe that's the chance to catch European clubs napping. I mean, that's the chance because they are not taking it too seriously, it seems. But there are some signs, like Real Madrid, for example, insisting on having a Trent Alexander-Arnold in their squad and paying Liverpool an amount of money to be able to register him on time for the competition. So maybe, but we will see. We will see because some players, or the majority of European clubs, gave their players holidays, and now they are back in the side. So will they be at their best physically or not? A lot of questions actually, and I have my own reservations for this tournament because I don't believe the selection criteria is fair. Um, for example, Chelsea in 2021, they were European champions. Now they are very far from what they were. Had FC Barcelona or Liverpool won the Champions League in Europe this year, they wouldn't still play. They would still for
Ridiculous.
furthermore 4 more years. So you lose the momentum of having the reigning actual champions who were crowned champions just 1 month before the competition, and you make them wait for more years. Pyramids is a case in Africa. Ahly Jeddah is a case in Asia. They are waiting, and it would have been the case with Barcelona and with Chelsea. I mean, they won it in 2021. Maybe by 2025, maybe they would have been the championship right now. So that wouldn't be even marketing wise the best choice for FIFA. So I believe they have to fix the selection cycle, try to include the same year that the competition is held in the selection cycle. And if South America is the CONMEBOL are insisting on playing the Libertadores late on the season, okay, they can have some criteria to select from the teams with ranking or with any kind of thing. I don't know, but I don't see it fair to make teams wait for 4 more years, and by the end of that cycle, they might be in second division or they might have gone bankrupt, while this competition would have saved them. So, and it would have given more momentum to the following up around the world. Like for example, for the opening game between Al Ahly and Inter Miami, as you read in some reports saying that FIFA decided to decrease the price of the tickets for the third time now. The decrease is 84% from the original prices because of the lack of demand. So you need to have the best teams who are really in shape to do something to attract interest. So I really dislike the selection criteria. But I think it's an experimental edition. Maybe next editions will be much, much better.
And I think you have to look no further than Africa, right? You know, like Wydad when they won the CAF Champions League, 2022, excellent team, loaded with Moroccan international as well. Regragui, the head coach, obviously then goes on to the World Cup and gets to the semi-final. And now we have, Wydad who struggling massively in the Botola, didn't even qualify for continental competition last year, sacking Rulani Mokwena this season, just in a terrible state when instead we could have had Pyramids who, are, at the peak of their powers, exciting team, different team, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, we'll get into that later as well. We'll get onto that in our preview for that team, and we'll do that on that episode. But Amr, looking towards this game with Inter Miami, we mentioned that this is actually in relatively quite a weak group, and Al Ahly actually have a really, really good opportunity. Porto came third in Portuguese league this season. They're not having a great time. Palmeiras, I think, are third or fourth in the Serie A, and are not the best Brazilian team out there. I think maybe Esperance are in a group of Flamengo. I think they're a much tougher opponent. Inter Miami, like you said, they have these stars, and we see it in their results. They have these stars. They can blow hot and cold. They get smashed in the CONCACAF Champions League semifinal, I think, in Vancouver, and then they go and beat an MLS team 5-1. They lose 4-0. They're all over the place, but they have Messi, Suarez, Alba, Busquets, this amazing team. You alluded to it earlier, but is that key to getting the best against them for Al Ahly, that kind of playing into that physicality? Because we know that's a big part of Al Ahly's game. Obviously, the players they've brought in are really suited to that. You think of in particular in that midfield, you've got Marwan Atia already there, but then you're bringing in the likes of Mohamed Ali Ben Abdan and Aliou Dieng, like physical, strong, kind of box-to-box midfielders. Is that the kind of way to approach beating Inter Miami?
Exactly. I believe if Al Ahly control the midfield in that game, and a player like Aliou Dieng, I believe he can have a massive role to play during that game. If Al Ahly can control the midfield, I'm saying they are going to win that game. And if they are not winning that game, they have to know that they will be out, because if there is a team that is the easiest pick, let us say, or the less difficult pick in this group, has to be Inter Miami. With all due respect to Jordi Alba, Busquets, all these guys, it's the end. I mean, they are approaching the end of their careers. Even if you can hold the game, keep it a draw for 60, 70 minutes, then in the last 20 minutes you can finish it off. I mean, all physical superiority that you have, because these guys, they will not be able to hold on for 90 minutes, definitely. But it all depends on the tempo that Al Ahly are going to play with in that game and the way that they are going to approach the midfield battle. I believe if Aliou Dieng starts, it will be a massive boost for Al Ahly, Al Ahly hopes. So yeah, I'm very optimistic about this game for Al Ahly, and even maybe in the back, the absence of an experienced centre back is a little bit of a headache. But Ashraf there is there, the Moroccan. He did a great World Cup with Morocco, and the latter stages of the CAF Champions League, he was very good with Al Ahly. Maybe the question marks are about his partner, who is going to partner him in the center of defense to to play in place of Rami Rabia. I believe it might be a surprise Mustafa Al-Aish, the left-footed center back of Al Ahly, because it seems that Jose Riveiro was convinced by his abilities, because he's that kind of a ball-playing center back. He's not the no-nonsense center back. No, he's with just clearances and headers. No, he knows how to start an attack, and I believe this is important for the build-up model that Jose Rivero is going to adopt, seemingly. Or maybe he can drag Hamdi Fathy from the midfield to the centre back position. He's very good in centre back as well, even though it's not his original or natural position. So yes, this very first game is going to be very important for Al Ahly. They have to take the initiative. They have to believe they can do something, and if they do something, I believe their job will be extremely easy heading in the next two games.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that's spot on. And with the signings they've made, they suddenly have so much depth going forward. I think for me, then the big question is, yeah, how do they get? Because they have the tools, going forward, and I'm very curious to see how that midfield lines up and how they feature, even like Ashour in it as well, whether he's kind of more forced out wide, and how that kind of fits into things. And because for me, that's where I felt Al Ahly have struggled this season. The Champions League is it, yeah, that kind of midfield dominance, but then also kind of the creativity and finishing up front. Again, it's not. It feels to me they're not quite the same team they were a couple of years ago when you had so many options. You had El Shahad, who was kind of at the peak of his powers, playing a lot, and you had all of the Calabra coming off the bench. And all of the and Percy Tau and all the guys who have moved on, and obviously it's now a new team, so I think it'll be really interesting. So, Amr, I want to pin you down. What is your prediction for the Inter Miami game, and what is your prediction for where Al Ahly are going to get to in this tournament? Is it a group stage exit, or is it the knockouts? Is it topping the group? Who knows? I want to hear your opinions, your thoughts.
Okay, I choose to be optimistic, so I'm going to say that is going to win that game 2-1. And yes, Al Ahly will go progress to the knockout stage, but it depends on who you are going to play. So maybe round of 16, I think it's going to be a very good result, and it will assure very satisfying prize money because of all the numbers that we've been hearing. I think it's mouth-watering for everybody. So yeah, I'm very optimistic about Al Ahly.
Oh, I love to hear it. I want to hear that optimism, Amber, because I remember ahead of the CAF Champions League final, the first game, you weren't so optimistic about Pyramids. Then you bought into it after that first leg when they were so good, and now you're fully on board on the Egyptian train. So hopefully Al Ahly will show up. Hopefully they'll best into Miami, because yeah, like you said, that is the big one. They have to win that game if they're going to get out of this group for me, because like you said, the other two teams not at their best, but are a lot better than Inter Miami. Amr, thank you so much as always. We always love having you on the pod, and I hope you can enjoy the tournament as well. Although obviously as a neutral observer, as I'm sure you are in Egypt.
Yeah, thank you, Ali. It's always a pleasure.